Hey, Katie. Oh my God. Are we really doing this?
We are. Welcome to Higher Downloads, where two moms, entrepreneurs, and spiritual seekers are getting real about doing our best to live life in alignment.
Yeah, and by getting real, we mean the raw, unfiltered voice memo version of ourselves.
And you know what we're really obsessed with lately: higher
hmm
downloads.
You know that moment when clarity arrives seemingly from nowhere? That's it. That's the higher download from your highest self.
Exactly, because we know everyone has the ability to access their own higher downloads. So nothing is off limits here. Everything in the wheel of life, from career, spirituality, motherhood, relationships.
Yep, everything. And really through the lens of higher consciousness and joy. And we have to share our higher downloads too, right? So grab your coffee
Or your crystals, or whatever you need to have fun with us.
and get ready to tune in to your own wisdom channel because receiving higher downloads means you can live your life in HD.
Higher Downloads starts now. Welcome back to Higher Downloads.
Welcome.
I cannot believe that we have our first guest here today.
Welcome, Stephen.
Hi, you guys. I'm so happy to be here. I'm very honored to be your first guest. So thank you for having me.
We are so excited to try this new for us on Higher Downloads to have someone. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better fit to have us as our first guest than Stephen Ross. And I'm really excited for everybody and myself to learn so much more about how you guys met, what y'all are up to, and there's just so much goodness here. So I'm really excited.
And thank you, Stephen, for being not only our guinea pig and trusting us, but I am really, really excited. I woke up before my alarm clock this morning thinking about, oh my God, Stephen and I get to share on the airwaves and live with Katie Showell what we've been cooking up and how we met and all these really cool things. And I believe that our community could really benefit. I feel like you have so much additive to my work, but also I'm excited to have this as a platform for people in our community to meet you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have had, Katie, some really dynamic conversations, and I really feel that when we get in sync, we've got this energy that could take on the world. So I feel very upbeat and positive and just ready for something, like its time has come. So I'm glad to be with you guys.
I love it. Okay, and just this amazing timing because we literally just got back from the amazing Miraval Resort here in Austin, outside of Austin, to celebrate KDP, your birthday. And no, it was so amazing and all really connected through Stephen. And so I know I know a little bit about how you guys have met, but I have not been brought along for the full journey and I have so many questions. So I want to start with tell me a little bit about y'all's first meeting. How did y'all meet? How did this get started? How does it tie to Miraval? Like, take me on that journey.
Well, I might kick us off, Stephen, and then hand it over to you.
Yeah.
But actually, Katie, we've talked a lot about it on this podcast when we were both in corporate burnout. And it was probably an ad, if I'm being honest. I don't know how, but Miraval came into my awareness, my field of awareness around being a wellness resort. And I was so shocked to find that it's really in our backyard here in Austin, and there are only three in the world. And so I was grasping for something. I was in deep burnout. I hadn't really processed the traumatic miscarriage I had. I was finally facing some of my childhood patterns I wanted to break. We've talked about this on the podcast, but what I haven't talked about on the podcast was one of the things that I did was I went to Miraval. And in that journey, there are specialists, of which Stephen is, and I won't take any more of that, steal any more of his thunder, but I had heard really great things about Stephen, and I had heard as an intuitive medium, he can really tap in and give a beautiful reading. And that was exactly what he did actually on my birthday. It was the best gift I could have ever given myself. Stephen spoke directly to my soul. He gave interpretations that rocked my world, and he gave me some clear steps that I could take in my healing and awakening journey. I took them very seriously. I am not the same person I was 2 years ago. You know that, Katie. You've watched it with your own two eyes, but Stephen was a huge catalyst in that. So I'll pass it over to Stephen to add any more and then take it from there.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
feel a
while
bit.
you hand that off, I do want to add, not everybody has been to Miraval, and I think setting the stage to
Mhm.
understand what that even
Yeah.
means when you walk on and then how you two found each other, some context on how special Miraval is, I think would help too.
Well, I can help fill in some of that as well. I feel a little bit emotional hearing Katie's story, and so as an intuitive, things come through you, downloads and information comes through you. So I don't necessarily always see it as little Stephen, though it does come through this vessel. So when I hear the kind of story, it really is beautiful for me to hear and see the impact of my work. Miraval is focused on life and balance, and we're an amazing collection of, I would call, gifted people who they've opened up. Miraval's owned by Hyatt. So I find myself in an unusual position of being a professional, intuitive medium. It's psychic work. And I get to sit with people who are successful in what they do. And they come in and they open us up for all kinds of services, whether it's intuitives, astrologers, nutritionists, tarot, you name it. And we're under one roof, basically. And we're able to then guide people into balance, well-being, and their best self. And so
Incredible.
it really is incredible what they do out there, and I'm honored to be a part of it. For me, as an intuitive, I have, I would call a gift, a rare ability to be able to access someone on the soul level. Now, it sounds very grand, the soul, and it's kind of religious-esque term, but think of it as a sophisticated energy field. And this sophisticated energy field is essentially communicating a signal all the time. Most people don't hear their signal, or it's muffled under the noise of the mind. So I can go in and somehow, I don't exactly know how, but it talks to me. And so by being out there, I've been thrown in the deep end in some ways of just a lot of people over years, thousands of people reading, but then also finessing, harnessing the craft, and being able to guide them in their way forward in their life.
Wow. It's
Yeah,
so incredible to hear about what your gifts are in that way. So just how did you say how long you've been doing this actively and how long you've been at Miraval?
yeah, I've been there since we opened 2019, so it's almost coming up on 7 years. I've been a spiritual healer for the best part of 20 years. I'm a yogi, and I say that beyond yoga classes and teachings, I used to own a yoga studio, but I'm also follow one of the gurus from India that's passed. So I'm very deep in that philosophy and worldview, which ties into our subject today somewhat, because they had this worldview of a new era. And so I've got these very profound teachings, and then this methodical. I'm a former analyst, okay, just for clarity, financial analyst. It's kind of funny to think of me like that in
Wow.
this context. So I love to analyze and see data, but it's a different kind of data.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's I have to ask, have you always had a little bit of this gift or how did you hone this? Like, how did you get started? I feel like
I
everybody's saying,
know. I feel like I'm trying to jump in. I'm like, Steven, share just a little bit more. And also, you were
yeah.
very modest. You should name drop the lineage of which you learned from.
Yeah, so there's been. Okay, I will. So I follow this famous Hindu guru named Yogananda. He wrote the autobiography of a yogi. And so I
Amazing.
try not to throw the terms out too much to seem holier than thou, but I'm a devotee, or this called disciple, like a lay disciple of Yogananda. He trained Americans in the 1940s and 50s before he passed. Even those people he trained now have passed away, but the next generation are my teachers, essentially. And so I'm very deep in that path. And he brought a very practical spirituality. You name it about life, and he saw a new expression of this. And very important context here is that in the 1900s, when these individuals came from India to America, they came to usher in a new era, to realize the self, to live in harmony with life. They wanted to reconceptualize what we even think God is. And so they brought us this whole package and said, you guys, here's the tools, go change the world. And there was some impetus in America to do it. And so for me, I'm a Scottish guy. You can hear my voice for those listening. And I'm half my life in Texas. And I grew up extremely sensitive, shy, reserved in a bubble. and a lot of anxiety too. I've had fair share of issues that comes along with this. You get to America, I'm 27 years old in the early 2000s in Houston, Texas, of all places. If you can do it in Houston, I think you can do it anywhere. And here I am, and these spiritual healers and teachers, monks. For some reason, I have a fascination with monks, saints, and mystics. And all these people are telling me, Stephen, you have this gift. And, for several years, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Okay,
And then
so they can
eventually I
see
just
it in
cracked.
you.
Yeah, they can see it in me before I can see it. And
Amazing.
I'm very, very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. And it's just one of those things. And I have this grace about me that sets me in these situations. And I just get, again, thrown in the deep end. So I go to
Well,
Miraval and I don't even tell them in the beginning that I have this gift. I'm more of a wellness facilitator. I do workshops and classes on stress and various things like this. I'm more of a philosophy guy. And then they say, hey, guests want to book you for one-on-one. Do you have any kind of thing that you do, a modality? And I said, well, I listen to people and I receive messages and I give them advice. And they looked at me like I was crazy. The directors kind of went, why didn't this guy not tell us? And so immediately they started, and I'm just in with all these people. And they come and they
amazing.
come and they come, and people are saying, this changed my life, this changed my life. And the third, I'll try not to name drop, I got to be careful on confidentiality, but I think the third person I ever read for at Miraval was a famous Hollywood person. And all of a sudden, little Stephen from a village in Scotland is sitting with this big shot, but they're listening to what I'm saying and it's resonating, and they're deciding on these big projects based on just these simple messages. And
Wow.
that's the
Well, we
beginning of a
always
deep.
say on higher downloads, and my personal belief is that there are no coincidences. So, what an amazing story! Right place at right time, whatever you want to call it, but a magical path to lead you here. So that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I had to know, so I know everybody else is going to want to know too.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story.
So KDP, you're there for your birthday. 2 years ago to the day from a few days ago, and you sign up to get some intuitive guidance from Stephen. And I do remember this story, even though it's a bit hazy. So, is there anything you want to share about the story or meeting him, or what stood out? Like how look where we are now. Now we're on the shared podcast. Y'all have a much deeper relationship. Y'all taken it off the Miraval ground. So, talk me through that.
So that could be a 3 episode podcast. But I will just say briefly, when Steven, so he came highly recommended, and I'd heard really beautiful stories about him. And so I went in really open-minded, really excited. At the time, I will be honest, I think it's important for our community to know, I was searching for answers outside of myself. And so I was like, Stephen will know. And what was so beautiful about the reading was he said simple messages, or the images that he was seeing were so resonant. I was like, yes, that is exactly what I'm feeling and seeing. And so it started to crack me open of a reminder of things we talk about on this podcast, Katie, about like tuning in and God is within, and what our downloads are. So it was a beautiful validation. But I think the thing that really stuck with me, in addition to some very practical things that he gave me in some of my healing journey, was Stephen told me, he said, your spirit guides are saying that your soul signed up to come into this incarnation at this time. You are part of a cosmic cleanup crew. And I know you're channeling in that moment, Stephen, so I don't know if you have any remembrance or conscious, memory about it. But you like almost looked up at me and said, you and I are both both of our souls have signed up for this cosmic cleanup crew, was the wording you used, that we've come to help other souls break through. And I don't remember if you exactly said like patterns or a new awakening. You just mentioned a new era with Yogananda, but it was like, I felt that at my deepest soul calling level. And so when I could do some of the pattern healing, which I've talked a lot about here and been vulnerable about, I could really access my soul. When I could calm my nervous system, when I could regulate my nervous system, when I could increase its capacity, I realized I could access my own soul's guidance, my higher downloads better. But there was a point just 7 or 8 months ago where I had this moment. I even think I shared it with you, Katie. I said, you know, I've kind of done everything Steven said in the reading, and there's just something about our connection. I would love to reconnect with him, and I had no idea if you would even remember me, Steven, but I just went on your website, I found you, and did a personal reading. And it was in that personal reading about 7 to 8 months ago where it was almost like I had done all my cosmic cleanup crew for myself, and my soul and Steven's soul were literally vibrating on the same frequency. And so we did a reading, but we also were like, should we go to coffee?
I love those connections that get off the original track. I love that. So, Stephen, what do you remember either about the first time or the second time, or kind of how did you guys end up reconnecting?
So I do remember Cosmic Cleanup Crew. It does stick in my mind. There's certain moments when someone tells me something, like a flashback, it just opens, like, oh yeah. And there's something about with Katie that, and other people too, where in a way of the same tribe. We're perhaps on the same mission, or there's some confluence of our missions that come together that just really clicks. And so I would say sincerely meant to be. And so when that comes through, it lights people up. I distinctly remember having a conversation with Katie and telling her that I do, beyond just my readings, I teach classes, facilitate workshops, work with organizations or leadership teams at Miraval. And she leans in and her eyes open and she says, "You do?" Like there was this great moment of like Katie just
Yeah.
opening. And I just loved that. When we had coffee, it was one of those, you've got like 2.5 hours for coffee, or maybe 2 hours you set aside for a coffee meetup. And like you're two
Yeah.
hours, 10 minutes in and you don't want to go. Just keep going and going. And so we were just, I think, just the lighting up, and there's something come together in this cohesion of our energy that to me, I just felt so alive in the conversations, in the vision, in the possibilities that we had together.
Amazing. Okay, I'm really excited to hear you kind of explain that is what you felt. I have felt that too, and I have seen where what I have said is I'll hear people talking and I'll follow them over a period of time. And I'm like, we're thinking about the same things. And I always make the joke of like, our guides, we share the same guides, or we have this in common. I'm curious from your intuitive perspective if you have, is that a fair representation? Do you have any clarity on
Yeah,
what
yeah, I
really
can
that
try to.
is?
I'll actually quote Yogananda, and this is one of his teachings, that thoughts are universally rooted, not individually rooted. So an intuitive reading really works for people, and Katie said it earlier with a validating of sorts of what they already know, because the signal's been trying to get through for a while. I will say something to someone quite simple, like you should get a bicycle and go biking, like something very straightforward, and they'll sort of stop. Yeah, I've been thinking that for a while. And yeah,
I
it's a
love it.
signal coming in.
Yeah.
So
And
one
what was
thing,
and one example of that was when I reached back out to Steven, I was specifically feeling this pull in my soul around the book I wanted to write, Katie, that is, and Steven, that is now coming out in September. And I was like, how do I fulfill my soul's mission of this cosmic cleanup crew, of awakening of souls, of breaking generational cycles? How do I do that in this book? And I was having this pull and tug of my core clientele right now are Fortune 500, Fortune 100 private companies. And am I going to scare everybody away? Am I supposed to just blow this all up? Like, how do I translate this? Where do I meet them? And I was having this tug and pull of how do I do that? And I knew it. The truth is I knew exactly what I needed to do. But again, I was a moment of like, I'm seeking some support, some validation. And Stephen, I don't know if you do remember this, but you were like, your guides are showing me you walking through an office space around cubicles. You're wearing a power turquoise suit and you're reading the energy field and you're giving them things live about the energy field, about their consciousness that they could never get from a book. And you talked a lot about those images you were seeing, and it was lighting me up, and I was tearing up because I do that. And I do read energy. I do talk to my clients about that. I don't want to freak them out. I don't do all. And then I thought, oh my gosh, the reason that I was able to access my guidance from that soul level was because I calmed my nervous system. And then it was literally in a walk. within days that I had the download of the organizational nervous system framework. I was able to write the book insanely fast. So Stephen unlocked that, and it was like our guides back to the shared field was like, and Stephen just mentioned organization, so that's where we probably needed to end up taking this is that's our sort of Venn diagram overlap was Stephen was seeing me already doing that. And Stephen works with organizations. So it's just a very cool shared missions, shared soul purpose, the words that you, whatever you were using, Stephen,
Yeah.
sorry.
So in someone's soul, if I can demystify it, I want you to think of it like a body. It's already an energy field. They call in the yoga tradition astral body, which again sounds a bit woo-woo, but it's already an energy field. And it has these pathways, chambers inside of it. So when I read that for people, they essentially have embedded gifts. These are functions of higher intelligence that people just seem to come with. Like a child, you're like, where did you get that from? You're not from me, and they have something inside of it that's pre-packaged. So they incarnate with these pre-packaged gifts. Now, when your nervous system's stressed, when you're in negative environments, when you're pulled down, and also there's so many facets, but if you were overindulging the senses in various things, then essentially your system goes into what we call a negative state and pulls you into fight or flight survival. So that kind of equipment then just goes and switches off, and it's there. It's just not. There's no. It diverts. Same with digestion. When you're stressed, you get stomach cramps and you don't want to eat. Your appetite goes. That's done to divert energy. So I've got a
Absolutely.
whole vernacular around that, and so now when we settle things down, you get coherent. You're not diverting energy just on survival from trauma and things that have happened. That now the energy diverts inside of you and these things open up. And now
Wow,
the
such a
higher
great
centers,
explanation.
yeah, the higher centers open and they are based on relationship energy in a field. And now we're getting buzzes and downloads. And that beautiful vision of Katie, I'll never forget it because I can see it vividly even now. But it was like she was like a fairy godmother or something, and she's just walking down this aisle of cubicles of these people, and she kind of goes psh, psh, like this, and then the person comes alive and has an idea or this or that, and so she was just going down this like big like like the what do you call it monochrome or one color, the gray cubicles, but she's just
Yep.
adding color into each one. And
I
it was so sweet. But once this comes alive in someone, they're tapping into something. They're using another form of intelligence. There's like 9 levels of intelligence, and so they're it just comes alive.
I love it. Okay. So y'all, okay, this is so exciting and such a great explanation. So thank you, Stephen. You're doing a great job kind of
Thank you.
like painting the picture of how all this is working. But okay, like what you've dropped little fragments here and there that you guys are working together. So what are y'all doing together? What is going on?
Katie.
Well, we had that amazing coffee. We've been having conversations. We recently met and did a whiteboard session, and it was like you heard Steven say, like when I walk through the cubicles and light things up. We were at the Austin Public Library, and I felt like fireworks are probably coming out of the library from our little room. It was so cool because it was like exactly like Steven said. It's like our nervous system, I think of it as the soul's instrument, right? So if you are in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all those things, then like the soul is just muted or muffled, and those signals can't come through. But Stephen and I have done our work, and so we were regulated and we were ready. And we whiteboarded a ton of things. We did name, we didn't have a full, we were just like, what would it look like? We held it really loosely. What would it look like? And we also invited our guides in, like, what would it look like for us to work together? Because I believe we're really approaching a similar mission from different angles. And so we've come up with a cool offering, and I'd love to just share a little bit more, Stephen. We can talk more about it. We're calling it the Clarity Consult, but I think we should really talk more broadly about why we're doing it. And Stephen, I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about the flourishing blueprint. And we use withering versus flourishing. And I call it the organizational nervous system, but you say every organization has a soul. And I'm like, yes, and yes. Like, so. And we did create a framework. We created a methodology. We're very excited to do this for senior leaders. But I feel like I've just teed it up, Stephen. So you want to talk a bit more about the flourishing blueprint and how maybe you approach it, and I can fill in any gaps.
Yeah, and I'll try not to take 2 hours responding to that, so bear with me. So, and the way I understand energy, consciousness, is human beings in this energetic level follow natural laws. These natural laws in the East are called dharma, which is the natural way. The dharma of fire is to burn, they would say in India. The human soul has natural laws it follows. And we can look into patterns of what makes this thing come alive or what drains life from it. And so think of the tree of life, if you've ever heard of that before, and we can water it. And then think about the number of anecdotal metaphors people use, planting seeds and watering ideas. And so there's a lot of language I think we're using for this to come alive. So I've been developing what I call a blueprint for human flourishing. It's my book, it's still in its infancy, but I want to be able to map people out to show them how to follow these natural laws. It's a little bit like gardening, how you you plant, you water, you weed, you pool, you tend to the soil underneath. And this applies on a personal level for your journey, but when you put people together into a group, they form a group field. Like you could think of a field in terms of a field of vegetables, but it's also a field of awareness. And so these natural laws apply in there. And so I think what we've done, which is amazing, is through just one person and their permission. This is good. There's certain parameters here that we can. I have a master key basically, and we can open the field. And when that opens, that field wants something.
So let me clarify, because this is incredible. And it's all the pieces are coming together clearly. So that's great. You're saying there's the one people, we have our field, there's a collective field going on out there too that we're all connected with. But then especially when people come together, whether that's in a company, organizational group of people, friendship group, I'm sure any group of people, that then creates a resonance, I guess, between everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what you guys are working. And the master key, tell me a little bit more about that. Is it like, hey, the leader is it the leader of the group that gives the master key? Or tell me a little bit about how that works.
It'll depend on the dynamics and the person. And there's a very important point, I think, for this to work overall is transparency. So if the leader is hiding everything, then it's going to be hard to read the other 10 people because they just don't know. But if there is transparency, it actually allows access so everyone can connect into the field. In my case with the key, some of my own guides showed me this like little chain with like 3 or 4 master keys, and I kind of walk around in it and go in and click and open it up. And it's instantaneous. That's the cool part. I don't need 3 months of research or an hour-long big report. Give me the name of it sometimes can be enough, and it opens. So let's just imagine there is some transparency. The leader, yes, maybe because the vision is anchored so much in them, is going to be extremely important in this, but anyone's possible. Once we get to one person, it then opens and splits to all the people like a mini brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then once you're in there and you've got that, now at that point for me, all I need is a little bit of information and then something comes in.
Amazing. Okay.
Like sometimes an executive will say, they'll go on this big rant about their job or their boss. And I'm like, stop. What's your boss's first name, please? Let's just say it's Brian, or so whatever it might be. And okay, boom, Brian's a really big character. He's kind of bossy. He's got a mean side. And he doesn't listen to your ideas. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Now that we're in,
oh my gosh,
what can we do about this? Brian is similar to
He's having a moment.
Well, do you see?
Oh my gosh, I love
this.
Can
I tell you one little story, you guys? It's a kind of fun one from yesterday, where this guy's a business owner trapped in litigation with something in Florida, been going on for years. I open it up and I see a black vortex, so I can tell it's a karma. Karma's action reaction. It's spinning black. And I'm like, we need to look at what's at the root of this. Why won't it go away? What are you trying to do here? Because we're right and they're wrong. That's what he said. They're being unethical and we're on the... Okay. Then it goes right back. Like, why am I seeing pictures of you being bullied when you were 10 years old? I go, hold on a second. We're repeating a pattern on a bully. And then
Oh,
it starts telling him
amazing.
of like slide out and back up. Do you see? That's the
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
crazy stuff that happens.
He was
Wow.
choosing the same story. And I think what's so cool, Katie, because you know you're a little bit closer to my work, is like I talk about how in my organizational nervous system framework, it's at the three levels: the micro level, the individual; the meso level, the team; the macro level, the organization. So Steve and I are using different language to describe some of the same things because teams, when two or more are gathered, there is a field of coherence. There is a nervous system. Our hearts have a electromagnetic fields. And so I feel and do things. And so I have been also loving this mutual mentorship that Stephen and I are also exchanging because I shared a story with him when we were having our whiteboard session about a recent client that I was working with. And I kept seeing in my third eye, like I kept seeing visualizations of this one employee literally like standing with his arms and legs spread out like an X, like he was blocking this part of the maze. If you think of a cornfield maze or a big hedge maze, and he was blocking so much. And I shared a little bit as without sounding, too off my rockers. I just really feel like this employee is blocking a lot of energy flow. And the leaders kept saying like, oh, it's but his expertise, like we're gonna allow him to act that way because he has this other expertise. Well, it doesn't last long. We know that how these, toxic people are. The leaders came to me and said, Katie, I think you might be right. We're not getting out of him what we want. He is blocking us. Can you help us work through a restructure plan there? And we did. And the day that employee was released, the day he was released from their company, one of their TikTok posts went viral organically. An influencer started to talk about their product and they sold out at Target. Like
Wow.
the day that person, that energy block. And so I was like, Steven, talk to me about this. Like, talk to me about,
Yeah. These stories are incredible. And anybody who's worked at a team, especially in corporate, and even not even in corporate, even just a small team, everyone knows the saying of you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Hmm.
And that's a very commonly understood thing. But what you guys are doing is you're taking it to a much deeper level. And I
Yeah.
think that there is still this idea in business, or if you're not super deep in the energetic side, that you're not putting as much weight or emphasis on those energetic ties and how much that they influence everyone around them. So the fact that you guys can bring that clarity is unlocking something that I think a lot of teams are blind to. That's incredible.
There's a concept of you bring your whole self to work. And this is very important because maybe in this organization, they hired that guy because they had shadow. They had something hidden. Maybe they didn't believe in themselves or there was something suspect. And so it's finding things like that. It's like
Wow.
almost there's a trap door and like, no, let's go down here and move. And so we can actually work through that and see motivations of why. Just like in romantic relationships, why two people come together, why is this attraction happening? Why is this magnetism happening?
yeah. And Stephen mentioned karma and dharma and all those things. And I talk about patterns and generational patterns and leadership
Hmm.
patterns and organizational inherited patterns that get passed down. And we don't usually often ask why. And the nervous system is literally designed, we are by design most likely to choose the familiar than even the optimal. And
Hmm.
so, Stephen, when you said that, is it because of, oh, I forgot the word you just used, but it was like, oh, their shadow. They were choosing something that was familiar, even though it wasn't best for them. So that man that you were just speaking about, choosing bullying, like his nervous system, despite it being dysregulating, bullying and being locked up in this battle is at least familiar to him.
Hmm.
And Katie and I have come to understand, and we talk a lot about in our podcast, is how people are mirrors, how we sometimes tend to choose these things. And so, because my goal is disrupting organizational and leadership patterns to have a more healthier workforce, and Stephen is that at the soul level, but also cares about organizations,
Hmm.
we whiteboarded out how could Stephen's beautiful intuitive gift, and I would say mine as like a very minor league, he's in the major leagues, but we talked about like what could this look like if we sat down with a leader, Katie? Like what would this feel like? You're a business owner, Katie, so like Okay, let's do this, Stephen. Katie's a business owner. She owns a real estate development company. Say she is wants to do this unlocked. Can we walk through the sense, interpret, act that we whiteboarded out? Like, what would that feel like for somebody? Could we do that?
Yeah, let's try. Let's try.
Okay.
So, first of all, for somebody, the great, I think the amazing part of this is that we can start with only minimal information. What's the name of the company? How long's it been going? And they'll say something like, I feel stuck, it's off, the team is struggling. There'll be some sketch. I basically say, give us a sketch.
Which is hilarious because I have worked in full-time consulting and we would build in a 2 to 4 week discovery part of our where we had to read all these documents and interview all these people and literally within seconds, minutes,
Yeah,
it's a
2 to 4 minutes.
Wow.
Being a
So
little,
much more efficient when
it's so
you
much more
use your
efficient. And this is
Yeah.
intuitive
why we call
skills.
it higher intelligence. Can I say one thing to set the stage here that might be quite fascinating to people?
Of course.
This is happening through, I would call, how do I say this without sounding like I'm on Star Trek? Hyper advanced interconnecting field of awareness called the ether. Now think of a grid, and it functions a little bit like how the AI functions, but I think it's way more dynamic because it pings out what you want, my success of my real estate company, to this very advanced thing that was out in space, and it connects to all points in time and space, past, present, and future, interconnects with your soul and the souls of all the individuals. Then it gives you a ping back in real time of a
But Stephen, we have to stop making these caveats. Literally, when the internet was invented, it was called the Ethernet. Okay? Like, come on. If like I've said on this podcast before, if you believe in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and you don't think that there's not this field of energy around us, like,
Yeah. We know it from physics and we know it from all kinds of new science and the Institute of Noetics. And also, when I see all the new technological stuff coming out, including AI, I kind of giggle because it's mimicking something else subtle where you don't need technology or those guys in the middle. And so religion was always in the middle between you and God. Now technology seems to be in the middle. That's my take. And so I was like, no, 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 let's cut the middleman. Now, yes, we are middle people, but I can also train people to do this stuff. So the sketch comes first. Then I would say my interpretation of sense, Katie, then is the ability now to see what comes through, actionable intelligence, messages coming in. There's a diagnostic of sorts. Hey, I'm seeing this, this is not you, okay, KDS, but I'm seeing this like wreck of a ship and it's coming apart and the engine room's on fire. There's going to be metaphors that we get that are going to resonate.
Okay, yes, love this. And I was going to say, we all understand this ether, right? We have spent a lot of time, each of us, really trying to wrap our minds around that, understanding it, using it. What is it like? Do the teams have to have that same level of understanding? Do they, if the leader understands and is bringing you guys in, what prerequisites does a team need to be able to lean in and get enough to say yes to what you guys have?
So there's a concept in what we call spiritual teachings. There's two concepts. One is magnetism, okay? The magnetism of this product, client, service, etc. Then the second concept is attunement. You can tune your awareness into the field. And I can train you to do that pretty quick. And so now we can tune into that. So if they feel purposeful, connected, passionate, they can envision the client, let's say, just to keep it simple, and they see them doing whatever this service is, they will then build a link to it. And
Oh
that's
my
very
gosh.
practical.
Okay. So this is great. This is actually helping me clarify this because KDP, I have seen you do this in experiential learning, right? Like everybody shows up in their own energy field and then you're setting a container, you're setting intentions, you're bringing them along for the journey that you're about to take them on. So this is a same experience for you as you're going to go into a team that maybe doesn't all come from the same starting point of understanding what you're doing, but you're bringing them up to the path
Yep.
to get them to the end result. Wow, incredible. Okay, this
And
is making so much.
it's so cool because I just had a client where I was working with their field operations team, highly technical, 99% men. They, what some people would call blue collar jobs, but they are insanely smart. They are working in an electrical utility company. And I'm facilitating this workshop live. And the teams are, it's the sub teams of this division are sitting at different round tables in this conference room at this big workshop area. And I would literally walk over to different round tables to the different sub teams, and I could feel different energy and I could feel it. And I think that's what I've come to understand. And it was like, as being both a client and receiver of Stephen's work, but then opening my own gifts, is our subconscious, our soul, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't speak in English. It speaks in sensation, in image. That's why Stephen said the boat on fire. It speaks in temperature and tightness, in a wave of grief, chill down your spine, your stomach. And so these aren't random, it's data. And so I have worked with clients, lots of clients, where I teach them body scans, just like, where's that feeling and what does that mean to you? Just how do you interpret that? Because I know, like, if something's in your shoulder, Katie, it might not mean the same to me, but my jaw is my big tell. And so what Stephen's doing in the sensing part of our framework is helping to tap into all the things he said with his master key, that thing. And so how do we unlock that so quickly? And how does Stephen share those sensations, those images, and me playing a minor role, if I'm seeing something, how do we reflect that back to them and let them and the leader interpret it of, now you name that, now you put that into English, you name that, and let's work with it. Let's work with why, like, Stephen's seeing that black vortex or whatever. So I hope that added a little bit of clarity to the sense of reading the field of consciousness. What's blocked? What's alive? Where is potential trapped?
Yeah. And
I can say, if Katie is in tune and we're sitting together and she's in tune with this field and these things are coming through, then she's getting her equivalent of the same information.
sure. Okay.
I'm called a medium, and we're like artists, and we paint from different canvases. We have different styles. So she's going to get that too. So if she hears it and pings, and we're sitting with a CEO, the two of us, and around a triangle, and then she's getting her ways, then we can interpret that. I'll often say to people when I get a message, does that feel right? Do you think that's correct? And they'll, sometimes in very big cases, you guys, I one time had someone ask me about a major biotech merger and acquisition, and I kind of panicked because that's pretty big league, but I just said it, and this very wealthy individual is
Wait, you
taking it
said
on
what?
board.
What did you say?
It was, I don't remember the exact guidance on it. I'm sorry for stock insider trading, I'm just joking, but I just, okay, you want to ask me about the merger and acquisition of a European biotech company, fair enough. And I just do it. I have to be somewhat eccentric to let that come through and not be attached to anything. But when it lands, it lands. Now, I can only take it so far. What I think makes this wonderful is my work takes you to a point, but now we have to interpret an action. And I have to stay very open and allow this to come through me. And it's a lot of people will have the reason, okay, that's wonderful, but how do I get from A to Z?
yeah. And that's okay. So sensing, then you're interpreting it together. So this is similar to doing a reading at Miraval one-on-one, but this is an interpretation. You're sharing what you see, what resonates. They're feeling the resonance and acknowledging what they probably kind of already know, because it's on the same ether. Amazing. Okay. You're interpreting it and
Together with that CEO, with that leader. And then we take the meaning and we have to create some action steps. We have to create something. And so one possibility is to then plug the actions through my organizational nervous system framework at the micro, meso, or macro level. What are very specific action-oriented things we could do? And for our community who continues to follow all of our shows, I will point you back to our Freedom Formula 80/20 episode, where we talk about the 20% is like, for an athlete, is like practicing your free throw shots. The 80% is the meditation, the calming of the nervous system, the visualization. So it's like, what is the 20% then in the actual 3D world that they need to be taking? And Stephen gave me in my read, and as like some of the 80%, like, how do you deal with some of those blockages?
Mhm.
And so that's where I would think about the structural action steps that we do together with is like we would think about that 80/20 where on the energetic, where are the patterns? Where are the things you're repeating that aren't serving you? I like to think about organizations. If a journalist came into your organization and all she could do is observe, you couldn't talk to her, you couldn't influence her at all, and she was going to write a headline about your culture, what would she say by observing it? Because, actions speak louder than words. And then if that headline would not serve you and it wouldn't feel good, then what are the steps you need to take to change your culture and to do those things so the headline was truly reflective of what you hoped it would be? And that might take things on the physical 3D, like moving money around, changing people's positions, some actual things in an organization. And it also could be having some hard conversations about what are the norms that we're allowing to happen here? Is this, are we serving ourselves by not engaging in constructive conflict or something like that? So, do you want to expand on that, Stephen?
Yeah, people are invited to make higher choices and get themselves out of patterns and lower choices. And they don't, and the ego doesn't want to do that. It'll
The
guard,
ego
it'll
doesn't
spring,
want to do it.
it'll hide from it, it'll pull back. But they don't realize as they step into that place, maybe even surrender on some level and make this higher choice. One of the concepts you mentioned were two or more are gathered, there I am. And I would like people to start thinking about your I am being bigger than your individual mind. Your I am now is your 12-person team. It doesn't mean you sacrifice yourself, it's not that kind of meaning, but your I am is bigger. So when you start to think of I am, what then is altruistic in that way where you say, you know what, that idea might just be a good one. And so there's an
Wow.
element of trust and cohesion that comes. So we have to start thinking of bigger. Otherwise, you're just in this small micro consciousness of your ego, listening to your own self reply.
Amazing.
Because we're so
Amazing.
free that we tend to choose our own prisons. And what I think about this, Katie, you and I have talked about like capacity. What does capacity really mean? And I've been really reflecting on that. And I believe that capacity increases someone's access to choice and agency. And Stephen, you just said it invites people to higher choice. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Higher. Yeah. And that's what that's about. Like, that's about not being stuck. That's about not repeating something that's not serving you. It's not about compliance. It's about choice. So
Amen.
I'm getting all the chills, everybody.
You got me fired up on that one. It's not about compliance, it's about choice.
It's about
It's
choice.
not about control, it's about vulnerability. And so now we have flow.
Yeah.
Now we have flow. And
Wow.
everyone's desperate for flow, but you can't make flow rigid in those old parameters. We have to break open the cage and let flow, and there's a way to make flow happen, and that's part of flourishing.
Wow. I
Mm,
mean,
I just want
personal.
to like start breaking out into song and dance. Like, do you not feel this? Do you not feel this energy?
I feel it. I feel it so much. This is so like on point of a need and vulnerability, even personal development and team development. It's that vulnerability, right? If you're doing personal development, it's easier in a one-on-one to look at your own headline that you're creating and then change it. But then in this group dynamic, the ego gets more activated because you're now being witnessed by others and you have like it's a whole different thing. So this is incredible. This is for those people that are willing to look at the headline, even if maybe the headline isn't the best, and are ready and committed to making that shift. And what did the phrase you said, accepting the better, the higher outcome? What is it? Oh my gosh, say it again.
Say it again, Stephen.
Oh, I don't know if I can say it again, you guys. It comes out to me, and I think
I think it was like it's about inviting them to a higher
Choices.
higher choice, yes. And they move into to flow, you see. When someone's an ego, they put a dam up, I'll be damned, and they block the field like this.
Yes.
because
Then they
the ego wants to.
surrender, which the ego thinks is defeat, but surrender has two meanings. Surrender means openness to a higher reality. And so now we open to higher reality. Can I give a ridiculous example, you guys? I love the TV show Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. My dad had a little place like that in Scotland, so I've lived it firsthand. And you see these stubborn, rigid hotel owners, and restaurant owners and stuff, and they will not listen. And everyone says the food is awful. And it's so obvious, but that's coming from insecurity, you see? And it comes from guarding and shielding. And he finally they have this wake up call with Gordon, and he lets them see, like, no, people want fresh produce. It's really basic sometimes. But all of a sudden, this aha comes, and they trust the young guy in the kitchen, and now he's cooking good. They see talent where they didn't see it before.
Wow.
But the ego
Absolutely.
wants to protect, and when you protect, you close in. And when everyone's closed in on a team, then there literally can't be flow. It's too many rocks in the river.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen, you have a phrase I love called release the treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about that as part of our offering. Our goal is to help them release the treasure. Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, so first of all, anytime you have treasure and gold, if you think of traditional fairy tales and mythologies, this is always pure authentic expression. We could say divine expression, but that's just your pure self, your talent, your gifts that's in there. Imagine this is like a treasure chest buried at the bottom of the sea, and you don't realize you have it. And now let's just say, for example, you have a very rigid organization. You're making people do things the way one person wants. You're caught in decades old routines and procedures, etc., etc., etc. But you don't realize the talent you have buried underneath. You can give the people all the money in the world, but not only will they be unhappy, but there's evidence to show they could have like psychological damage, and they misbehave. Like it does real damage. So now we unlock these potentials.
So
And if I
going
can
through,
go
yeah,
ahead,
go
Katie,
for it.
sorry.
I was going to say, so going through this process, that's one of the outcomes is essentially releasing the treasure within the team, within every individual,
Mm-hmm.
within the vision of the whole business, right?
Yes.
Am I hearing that? Okay.
Yes. We could have extremes where someone is totally out of coherence with the field and they probably need to go. There's definitely that scenario, and people will often ask me interpersonal types of things and conflicts. They might show how to manage a conflict and repair it somewhat based on there. But essentially, if treasure comes out and people are moving into the dynamic energy field, you'll find, I find that they usually already know, they want it, and if you give them a chance of dare to dream, then that dream, they'll let that come out in their vision if you give them a voice to do it. And then you see it play out, and you can tell, like, people's energy shifts, their face lights up, they become animated, they want to rearrange the furniture, literally. It's a really fascinating concept. Like, they'll change the structure of the tables and chairs and who sits where to match it. That's a pretty interesting one too. So there's I could just go on forever. There's all kinds of expressions of this.
Wow. Well, I can really see this bridge because Katie, you are working with these companies day in and day out on change management and action plans and bringing whatever is needed to life on a, tangible level that they can then walk away with. So, wow, what a wonderful partnership that you have co-created together.
Isn't it amazing? Like it's just literally our souls, like we're in coherence. And Stephen and I both subscribe to this idea of stewardship, a stewardship model. We're in the age of Aquarius now, and Katie, you know that like old structures are dying. Stephen uses the dinosaur era. We're looking at
Dinosaur
large
effect.
conglomerate or dinosaur effect, yeah, conglomerate organizations and this patriarchal, hierarchical, top-down, oppressive structures aren't working anymore. And so the stewardship model or organizations that are interested and ripe for uncovering the treasure, are they ripe for change? Are they open to a new way of working? Are they, even if they don't know how, like, are they open to something that feels flourishing? Why do we have to accept burnout as an option? And I say burnout is a design flaw of an organization. And so Stephen can share a little bit more about the stewardship model, but we both believe that organizations that could shift in that way could unlock the treasure, could be a place where people, because paychecks are important. Money is a currency that we have accepted right now in this world. But I believe that souls incarnate in people when they feel like they're additive, when their work is significant, when they are producing something that feels, 1 + 1 = 3, there's synergy. People want to find pride in their work. And so how do we unlock that treasure? And so you want to just quickly describe the stewardship
I'll
model a
try to
little
be
bit, Stephen?
brief on this one,
Yes.
Katie. So one of the big things that Yogananda, the gurus, and many ancient kind of cultures, indigenous tribes, and various things talked about was a shift in consciousness. This begins and it really kicks off in the early 20th century around the splitting of the atom, the new science, but it happens internally also. The big thing that we understand this is, think of old world Europe, okay? King, emperor, lord, feudal systems. Everyone's got their own little thing, and then they've got this rigid system that comes down. Now, I grew up in the UK, and that very much exists today. The social order and engineering is quite extraordinary. It can even be hard for Americans to fully comprehend. New World says freedom, liberty, self-sovereignty. You can be anything you choose, rise above your station, sort of thing. And so you have these two worlds. However, what's fascinating to me is in the inheritance of European systems, we bring in the corporate system, which is now mirroring the old feudal systems, I think, in some cases, not obviously not all. But now we have what we call neo-feudalism or managerial feudalism, a lord with all of this. And there's books written about this, but essentially now we've inherited systems that are command and control, modeled after the military and church, and we bring it down in this organizational tree. That's old consciousness. It creates competition internally, it creates ego, it creates feudal structures, and what should be basic business principles of competitive advantage and innovation actually isn't the case in a lot of organizations. Now we switch to something that's much more fluid, circular, customer focused, a new dynamic. And that is a revolutionary shift and evolutionary. Like there's new consciousness is butting in with old consciousness. Same with kids and education. And so people are like, I just want to be free to do this and do my thing, but I can't. And so
freedom is Katie's love language.
Freedom is my love language. And this is definitely speaking to me. And I know that part of what gets in people's way is they just can't see another way. And so the fact that you guys are bringing this forward and showing people another way, you are the cleanup crew. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we're revolutionaries really when it comes to stewardship, because breaking the old model is very difficult the more entrenched it is. And so we're at the tip of the spear, really, or the crest of a wave. I find myself one of the world's first professional mediums. It's so strange. And so here we are at the crest of this wave, and I think people are just hungry. And by the way, stressed people think they have no choice. You give them a choice and you break the stress, you see.
Yeah, a nervous system that is in fight, flight, freeze, or chronic dysregulation doesn't believe there's choice. And then the easier thing for the brain to continue to choose is the same thing, even if it's exhaustive and suboptimal. So it's like, what is that physics thing? Something that's in motion stays in motion until something, right? So Stephen and I are here to kind of wake people up in that motion and say, is this what you really want? What we're seeing in the field of consciousness, what we're experiencing, can you help us? We sense it. Can you help us interpret what this means for you? What do you really want? And then how do we anchor to that outcome? And then we help them to think through some things from the material world, some like physical, actual action, some decisions, and then something on the energetic. How do you retrain your nervous system, or how do you tap into your intuition, your own intuition and consciousness, so you are creating the reality? You do have the choice and the agency to create the reality that you want. And so we're doing that at an organizational level, which gets us both lit up. And Katie, I'm so excited for you to just hear Stephen speak. Do you not now understand why I light up around him?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crystal clear. And I love this. I want this for my team. I can imagine. I mean, this is not for broken teams. Like, this is for being your best self, for just doing your best and then still feeling that ceiling and wanting to be better and wanting to be even better than you could imagine. So like, I see this for broken teams. I also see this for teams that are not fundamentally broken, but just want to be their best selves. So how can somebody start working with you? How can somebody, if this resonates, and this is going to resonate with a lot of people, so I'm really excited. So how do they get to working with you guys?
Stephen?
I was waiting for Katie to answer that.
Well,
so we are developing
now.
Yeah, we are developing now our concept. One thing, other thing I want to say to people to understand this, we're putting together a package of sessions of which we were able to go in and do an immersion with people, with our clients. And we're not just taking in the information and interpreting it. We can turn this in through AI into an executive summary and report. And so we can do that instantly now with the note takers and things. So we can turn this into a report, we can create this package. And to answer your question directly, this is coming on our websites, correct, Katie? That we
Yeah,
will
we
have
each
this.
have our individual websites. We still are our own individual entities, but we believe deeply in this collaboration. So we'll be having a document that people can access from both of our websites. And then I think we can put in the show notes our individual websites that people can reach out to. Either of us would be an entry point into booking a clarity consult, is what we're calling it.
Yeah. And we're talking about, I think it's 5 sessions, correct? Or is that right?
Yeah, it's a packaged experience so that we can work a team, a leader through this experience. And we believe that in those 5 sessions, people can get what they pay Deloitte or PwC or Bain, these high level consulting firms. We believe they can get in 5 sessions with us what they get in a 2-year deal with traditional consultants. Like very accelerated, multi-pronged, multi-dimensional approach.
Dynamic is my word, Katie. This
Dynamic,
is a
yeah.
really dynamic, real-time pulse read of where you are and where you're to
Mhm,
go.
Well,
mhm.
for a company that values efficiency, what you are offering will be far more efficient than previous consulting that they've had. So incredible. So tell me, okay, each of your websites and if you have social medias, essentially they're going to reach out to you, do the clarity consult. So what is your website's names and social media handles? Like where can people find you?
Thank you. I'm Stephen Ross Intuitive is my website.com, stephenrossintuitive.com. And on there, the Clarity Consult will be, where I'm about to relaunch it in the coming days. And the Clarity Consult will be on there, and they can reach out there. They can reach out for readings. They can reach out for workshops. I want to train people to be in coherence and resonance more. That's a big passion of mine as well. Social media, a couple of things I do is I have a Substack, and in Substack it's called Living Wisdom, and so that's on Substack, and then LinkedIn I'm on there as well as an organizational intuitive.
Amazing. We'll get your links too, and we can post them in the show notes.
Thank you, Katie.
How about you, Katie Pritchett?
People can find me at drkatiepritchett.com, DRKATIE, Pritchett, PRITCHETT.com. And then I'm at Dr. Katie Pritchett on Instagram and LinkedIn as my main socials. And of course, they can also DM us on higher downloads and we can get things where we need to go. But as Stephen said, we're really excited to launch and share this fresh with the higher downloads communities. And so the Clarity Consults will be coming live on our website soon. So you heard it here first.
Yes, it really is a way forward, I think, and it's important now to really understand is we've been relying on past data, static data. This is now real living data in the moment. So I just think it's a really exciting time to offer this, and so many people and organizations need it. So I'm thrilled to be in collaboration with you.
The feeling is mutual, and we might have our first client with Katie's Topos Collective.
I think we need to chat. I'm so excited. This was so awesome. I learned so much, and I really feel like I got a really clear picture. So thank you both for volunteering to do this so that I could scratch my curiosity and learn more. And I'm so glad that I did. So this was a wonderful, wonderful episode, and I'm really excited to see what momentum that you guys get from this. So thanks for coming, Stephen.
Thank you both so much, and thank everyone to listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank
All right,
you. Thank you, Stephen.
Until next time, trust your higher downloads. You just experienced another higher download. We are so grateful you joined us on this journey.
Yep. So if you're feeling that high vibe energy and want more, subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode sparks something in you, we'd be over the moon if you'd share it with someone who might need this download too.
Yep, connect with us on Instagram at Higher Downloads, where we share more behind the scenes magic and some bonus content.
You can also find full episodes, transcripts, show notes, and resources at higherdownloads.com.
Until next time, trust your downloads and keep vibrating higher.